Sometimes it's just so easy in the equine industry to think, well, that's the way it's always done. That's what we've got, especially when things are functional and they work. But sometimes we also know that we can have some change, we can have some innovation. And today I have got Bradley Whale of Ipotane Saddlery, and we are talking all about how he has used his expertise as an osteopath to create and design a saddle that is changing the industry and changing the lives of horses. So, you ready? Let's dive in. You're listening to the Stable Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Bush, here to chat all things equine business with a new episode every week from me or from the best in the biz. Now, don't forget to leave a review and, of course, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode when it drops. So today I am joined by Bradley Whale. Bradley, I am so excited that you are here today. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, who I am is, my name's Bradley Whale. I am a osteopath by trade, an equestrian specialist and human. Been doing that for 20 odd years. But the most recent thing is that I have invented a very weird saddle. It is a saddle which actually the industry has been asking for a very, very, very long time. But due to the culture of the saddle industry, it wasn't achieved. So I tried it, and I succeeded, and that's the fun part. So yeah, it's quite good fun.
Yeah. And so, I find that this saddle is just something different. And I think it's what we've been, say, in the equestrian industry, a lot of the time we feel like there's no innovation, that there's no opportunity. We just have to do everything with what we've got and what we've had. So explain to everybody a bit more about like what this saddle is and why you designed it.
Why I designed it. I designed it in a fit of crazy kind of looking at the industry and just going, why hasn't the industry improved? So basically, I invented a saddle which is made in two halves. So a bottom half for the horse and a top half for the rider. And they're interchangeable. So it means that if you have multiple horses, you can have one top, which is made to the rider's measurements, i.e. the leg length, ankle flexibility, pelvis width, muscular kind of distribution. And then that can be individually kind of plugged or inserted and locked into every other equestrian component. So you can basically it's a universal plug and play system. So the idea is actually that we can help save customers quite a lot of money and time. Because the idea is that actually you have one saddle which fits you and one saddle which fits your horse. But then if you were to, for example, children, as they're growing and changing, you're sat there going, oh, that saddle's a bit too small for that child now. It's kind of grown out of it. And what we do is, again, because I'm an osteopath, I looked at it and just went, well, why can't we have this two-part component? And it means that then the rider part could also be rented, so that the customer or the child, we can support them as they're growing and changing. And equally, we can do that for the horse as well. So as horses grow and develop and change, we can then support the horse in a myriad of different ways. And it's all been designed because, as I say, I'm an osteopath. So I spend hours looking at humans and looking at horses and looking at the two and going, well, how does the two connect and so on and so forth. I've been working as an osteopath for 20 odd years plus. And in that 20 odd years of working in the equestrian industry and solving many problems and puzzles for the industry, I kept on coming back to saddles and just going, well, why haven't they stepped on in the last 20 years? Because I'd also worked in other sports, such as Formula One and cycling and rowing and various other kind of high-performance sporting Olympic sports. And you see the rapid innovation which goes on within those industries. From, in cycling, the introduction of the Chris Boardman bike and various things like that, which ended up winning Olympic gold. And that was very controversial at the time. But you saw this rapid innovation And I kept on coming back to the equestrian industry and just going, well, where's the sudden leap? You know, every industry has a sudden leap forward in their in kind of innovation and engineering and understanding and the science. And in the equestrian industry, I never saw it. And I got chatting away to a colleague of mine who's a saddler. And I just kept on asking the question. I was like, well, why haven't we had this massive step forward? You know, and he just said, well, no, it just doesn't happen. You know, we've built a saddle. It's typically made out of wood or plastic. And you know, there are some carbon fiber trees out there or saddles. But he said, that's it. You know, we all just, you can't really do what you're asking. You can't mix the two. It's one tree made for the individual horse or the individual rider, and that's how it works. And I just kept on coming back and going, the difficulty is this combination between the two, because as soon as you have a different horse or a different rider, that product just then doesn't work. So I then kind of thought, well, I know people keep saying that it can't be done, but you know, after 20 odd years of watching the industry and seeing how riding hats had improved, body protectors had improved, you know, we saw the air jacket come in, and you're sat there going, well, why isn't the saddle in it? Quite, you would argue that the saddle is quite quintessential to riding to a degree. Why hasn't that stepped on? And don't get me wrong, there's been various improvements of the product, but it's improvements within a certain limit, a certain range. You know, we already have a structured understanding of what a saddle should look like. And then it's just, oh, we'll tweak it. We'll tweak it and make it a little bit better or a little bit better. But we never really saw this kind of massive step forward. So I thought, well, okay, well, if somebody says it can't be done, then it sounds really silly. I'm the type of person who turns around and goes, well, okay, well, let's have a try. I'll have a try on my own. I'll just try and build it on my own, you know, in my garage, be nerdy and geeky. And I ended up bodging together my original saddle. My original people who were testing the product in the early days, that's good kind of 3-4 years ago. They are brave, because it was held together with staples and sticky tape and glue and it was a diabolical kind of a horrendous amalgamation of things. But I suddenly learnt that it could be done, and actually it just needed a real big step away from the industry norm, which is, you know, as I said, I'm an osteopath, so I'm not conditioned or kind of. I've been trained as a saddler to look at saddles in a certain way. I've been trained as an osteopath. I've been trained to look at the body holistically. I've been trained to look at anything holistically. You know, if I sit down with a client, I'm sat there talking about their social life, their work life, their home life, their biomechanical issues, their nutrition, their psychology, family history. I'm looking at everything. So I decided to just go, still in playing around and mucking around in my shed. I thought, well, okay, let's sit down and actually have a go at doing this properly. And that was quite good fun, because all of a sudden I had to kind of really step away from the industry, and remove myself from the point of view of thinking what people want and actually turning around and going, okay, what does the horse need? And what does the horse want? And what does the rider need? And what does the rider want? And look at them as two very separate entities, rather than where I was as a therapist. I'm trying to amalgamate the two, and I'm trying to understand the interrelationship between the horse and rider. In the early days, I was very much kind of, if I want to build a product made for two individuals, then I have to look at the individuals as individuals, and I can't look at them as a combined unit, which is where a lot of the saddle industry looks at saddles. They look at the quite rightly so, they're trying to combine the two. But the problem is when you try and combine the two, there's a million different versions and potential possibilities that can occur, which almost makes it an impossible task. So I kind of then separated the two. I said, right, what is a product which the horse needs? What does it really, really want? Let's look at all the issues with saddles and let's try and break it into two groups. What does the horse want? What does the horse need? What does the rider want? What does the rider need? And that was really the start. And it became quite fascinating because the horse and the rider are looking for polar opposite things. And also then there's different degrees of that within each category. So you might have a rider which needs or wants a huge amount of security because of previous trauma, falling off, feeling unstable, lack of stability in terms of their muscular strength. And then you might have a rider who's fantastically strong, they're very confident and they're very well positioned and well balanced, and they don't want the restriction of huge amounts of blocks or large blocks and kind of really positioned saddles. And then the horse is looking for another set of parameters. So you're suddenly looking at this product, which I will openly admit at the beginning I kind of thought, it's just kind of just split it into do and make it lucky to get, be fine, it'll be easy. But it's like anything, you start digging out and you start kind of going, oh, okay, well, why do we put, for example, a gullet bar on if it's an interchangeable gullet bar, why do we put it underneath on the horse? Because actually that creates a slight lump or a divot, which could potentially create a problem for the horse. Why does the rider have, they're looking for stability and everything like that. As I said, that could be psychology orientated. So you're suddenly having to start digging through why things are put where they are. And you start kind of figuring out not what works, that's terribly rude, but what is beneficial for the horse and what is beneficial for the rider. There are some things which are put into saddles which don't benefit the horse, but they're designed to benefit the rider. And equally, there's other things which are designed to benefit the horse and not benefit the rider. So you have to go on this massive exploration, which has taken a huge amount of time. It's taken about 3 years plus, because the problem is it's like anything. You dig down deep, you find kind of a huge pool of knowledge, and then you've got to kind of sit back and go, how do I put it all together? How do I put all of the best bits of everything all into this kind of roughly 18-inch by 12-inch area? And that's quite fascinating because I ended up having to do research, which was really quite nerdy and geeky, to kind of work out theories and various things like that. And unfortunately, I had to do a stint at college. I had to go back to college, which was horrible, to learn mathematics, which I completely understand. Anybody, if you're not a mathematician, and I am certainly not a mathematician, I'm a therapist. I rub people for a living. I love communicating to people. Numbers are really foreign to me. That you suddenly have to sit back and go, oh God, no! I've got to remember geometry and trigonometry, and oh no. So yeah, that was horrible for about a year. Which my supervisor at the time just kept on saying, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "I think I may have invented something." And he actually helped me quite a lot because he was working out, curves and structure and leg lengths and various things like that, which was quite good fun because it was a real world application to what he was teaching. So yeah, it's quite good fun, and especially now that we're kind of producing the product for people. And
yeah, so that's been quite a journey. It's like I worked in schools in maths departments for years, and I often used to say to kids that, because they'd be like, "There's no use. This doesn't come into real life." It's like, it really does. Like, not everything, but there are some things. It's great that you said that. Yeah, you do actually need maths in order to understand saddles. But how do you? Yeah. So like that's been such sort of a journey coming from that perspective and building this product, like, so what was like the next step for you once you'd got this idea and you got it, like the concept of it? Like, how did you then go from that original
Finding
prototype?
some very brave individuals. I still so we have a because we've been doing this now for a good 3 or 4 years. So we have a very trusted group of testers. So we have what we call alpha, beta, and sigma. So alpha testers, they get to see a lot of my crazy ideas, and there are a lot of crazy ideas I look at. Which the poor alpha group, they know me, they trust, but that I trust them a huge amount. They get to see some of the real crazy stuff, but it's always kind of so we have a testing process where before it goes out to a customer, we have concept. So we come up with a crazy idea. So, for example, a new type of saddle, or a new type of girth, or a new type of stirrup bar, or kind of girth straps, or various things like that. And it's not just that type of stuff, but we do lots of other crazy things. So we build it. So we come up with the concepts, then we build it in. Essentially, what I do is I do a lot of garage testing. So I basically then get myself to then test the product roughly. I build it out of material, but it's still a very rough formation of the product, just to see about materials. You know, are certain materials better than others in terms of not just leather, but we're talking about certain types of plastic, certain types of metal, pardon me, certain types of wood, various things like that. Then, if it passes that kind of what we call garage testing, then what we do is we then take it back to concept and we refine it. So we improve it. So what the knowledge which we've got on the certain forces and the curves and various things like that, we then take it back to concept, and then we improve the concept. Then what we do is we go, right, now we're actually going to test, we're going to build a proper one. And that's where you have to put down a lot of money to then go, right, okay, now we're going to build probably about 5 or 10, not very many. And then what we do is we then basically supply that to the another round of testing, which is, it doesn't involve our riders. We still haven't got to our riders yet. So what we do then is we actually then test it on mechanical horses. So a lot of our product is actually tested on mechanical horses. And the reason being is because if you test a product on a living creature, there's certain things which can happen, which is fatigue. So for example, the muscles get tired, the riders get tired, so which can obfuscate your readings. So what we do is we then basically put it on a mechanical horse, which can simulate a horse's movement. So we then test it on that, and we whack it with, we have a big testing rig, which basically drops loads of weights on. So for example, like the saddle, it tests all of the weight of the rider, like repetitive impact. And I've got quite friendly with a testing house, which actually tests, it's relatively local, but they test a lot of military gear. So what they think I'm a bit crazy. I've got quite friendly with some of the engineers because one of them actually rides, and he's like, "Oh, that's actually quite a good little thing." So he comes in and helps me kind of set up all the testing. But there's what we call an impact tester, which sounds really odd, but it's how they test basically beds. Or mattresses. There's this kind of thumper. And it will test that you basically put it on at 4 o'clock and it will run throughout the night, and it will test, it will do, I think it's about 100 impacts every minute. So you can get longevity testing in it. So we'll just leave it running for 24 hours and then we can get the results, and then we kind of reassess. That then, once we've got that result, we then go back to concept and then tweak it a little bit more. And then we actually make another set of 5 or 10. And then we shift it out to our alpha testers, who then test it and ride it, and then actually give us real feeling data. So all that research and testing beforehand has all been done relatively without humans involved. I know that sounds very odd, But like the mechanical horse, we've had a rider sit on it and various things like that. But a lot of it has been, okay, impact testing, making sure it's safe for the rider, safe for the horse. So because safety is really important for me anyway, because I obviously as a therapist, you're sat there kind of going, half my time is I'm treating horses with bad backs, or I'm treating riders with bad backs, or I'm treating horses with issues. And you're sat there going, no, the priority is to make sure that this is not damaging or aggravating or causing any problem. So that is my first thing. So then our alpha group get to ride it, and then they come back and they go, right, it works, but it's not comfortable. It works, but it needs this tweak. It works, it needs this. And you go, right, okay. Or even sometimes, actually about 4 of our inventions so far, they've turned, because I'm doing other stuff, they turn around and go, no, we need to do a major redesign on that. That's just not, it's not working. I can understand your theory, I can understand your principles, but it's not viable. So we then go back and then we try it again, and if it doesn't work 2-3 times, then you sit there and go, right, don't try doing it, because you don't want to put the horse or the rider at risk in any kind of damage. So that's our alpha group. So then we go back and then we start tweaking, things like padding. We start tweaking things like the aesthetics, the look, so on and so forth. And then that goes then to our beta group, which is a bigger pool. So our alpha group is a group of 5 to 10 individuals. That, as I said, they get to test our products from early concepts. Our beta group is then what I call the problem group, is the most polite way of describing them. They're individuals all known to have problems. So, for example, one has a disability, quite a severe disability. We've got kind of people of various different age brackets as well with known issues, like one lady has arthritis. One lady actually has just had a hip operation. We have people who are kind of doing various things with their life. Life just gets on. So you've got to have, people living real world situations. So we have this kind of rolling group of what we call beta testers, which is a group of 30 individuals. And they range from severe disabilities to absolutely fit and healthy and high performance or low performance. So we're not interested in the performance bit, but we're interested in the health. And they also have various issues with the horse as well. So one of the horses actually has kissing spines. One of the other horses has had kissing spine surgery. So we then built a product for kissing spine surgery to help distribute the load of the rider, because when the horse was going through the rehabilitation process, obviously at some point you've got to get back on the horse. But you can't build up the muscle tone well enough do it on groundwork. So at some point you've got to sit on top. And if you're a big rider, getting on top of a horse with low muscle tone, then you've got to think out clever ways to distribute that load away from necessarily that kind of kissing kind of spine area. And then you've got to then fill it in so it can build that muscle tone back up. So we had to do stuff like that. So we have this kind of problem group, and I mean it in the most polite way possible. They're lovely individuals, but they all come with problems, and it's brilliant. But you're also sat there kind of going, yeah, okay, this is real life. This is how it is. You can't kind of go, right, I've built a product, here you go, everybody. You sit there and go, no, everyone's an individual. Everyone's bringing in their own issues, be it that, we've just got one lady, she's been with us for since the beginning. She didn't want to be an alpha tester, she wanted to be a beta tester. And lovingly, she has announced that she kind of told us that she's pregnant. And I've said, right, that's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to have to build you a pregnancy saddle now, aren't I? And she went, what? I went, well, yeah, through the stages and post-pregnancy saddle and all that. And jaw just dropped on the floor. She was like, really? I was like, absolutely. We've got to build you one. Because, not going to sound rude, but once women give birth, their whole pelvic shape completely changes, their hip articulation changes, so on and so forth. So what you had before may not be relevant or proportional to what you had afterwards. Even though the horse hasn't changed, the horse is still lovely, the horse is still doing the same, but her whole physiology and her whole architecture of her body is going to change quite considerably. So we're in the moment just kind of taking measurements from her and kind of trying to predict the future changes which she's going to have, so we can start building products for her, which is quite good fun.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's all. Oh yeah, no, we're doing some really weird stuff, and then after the beta group, we then start bringing it out further.
Brilliant. So what have you seen? So from people that are using the saddle, like what changes have you seen in horse and rider? Like what like does it do?
I can give. No. It's love it. I can give you one situation where it wasn't meant negatively or anything like that. We went to see a client, and we got introduced to the client through the saddle fitter, because the saddle fitter had fitted a saddle, but the saddle kept on going wonky. It kept on slipping off to one side. And they said, look, this customer had about 5 or 6 saddles in the last year, so 2023. They had trialed, and all saddles kept on slipping. And this fitter, I'd met once or twice, and they're not one of our fitters, but they said, look, just can you come? Your crazy idea, I kind of like it, I engage with it, I think it's a great idea. But do you want to try her as one of your beta group? And I said, well, yeah, why not? Let's have a go. I'm always up for a challenge. So we went out and we did a fitting for her. But before we did a fitting for the product, so the way we fit our products, or the way we do stuff for our products, is actually we take what we call objective measurement. So we actually, sounds really stupid, but we walk around a horse and a rider with a tape measure. And we measure everything, because much like riders, horses can have leg length differences. Riders can have a leg length difference, but there's things what we call a true leg length difference. So, i.e., you've got one femur shorter than the other, or you have a leg length difference where there's a pelvis rotation or a twisted pelvis, which is the most common thing. And then what we do is we then adjust a product according to that. And then what we do, so we went out, we measured the horse, we measured the rider, and then we go back to factory, and then what we do is we build the product off those measurements, because we do a mixture of what we call hard measurements and soft measurements. Hard measurements are bony lengths, and we knew that this horse was 12 years old, so it wasn't growing. Every saddle which they put on, the saddle was always slipping off to one side. Even when it was lunged, even when it was free, the saddle still kept on slipping. So we knew it wasn't a rider issue. But we did find something wrong with the rider, but that was a separate thing. She rotates her pelvis a bit too far forward, but that's through years of wearing high heels and working in the city. So we gave her some exercises to just go off and do, whilst we were building a product for her and her horse. But we found that the horse had a slight leg length difference in its hind legs, in its cannon bones, which is partly the reasons why it had a what we call a boxy foot behind. So one foot was more upright than the other. So we then built a product which would accommodate for that slight asymmetry, because that structural asymmetry was then causing muscular asymmetry because the muscles were compensating. So we then basically built a product, came back out to her, and then plonked it on the horse, got the horse out lunging, saddle didn't slip. Said, right, okay, now put the rider on. Rider went away, rode it. I'm not getting involved. I prefer, the way I like to deal with customers is to basically turn up, let the customer put the saddle on, let the customer be completely natural. I don't want to interfere, just give a huge amount of time for the customer just to basically be on their own and make a complete assessment on their own. So they had a good kind of half an hour running around with it and cantering and doing all transitions, trying to make it slip and everything. And it didn't. And she came back after half an hour going, I've tried everything which would make the saddle slip, and it's not. It's just staying exactly where it is. And I went, right, well, okay, that's a good thing. She was like, no, it's an amazing thing. So I've been struggling with this for the last year and a half, 2 years. And I've had numerous saddle fitters out to try and fit products. She's like, how did you do it? And I was, well, it's when you actually think about it, it's actually quite logical. Is that because you have a horse with a bony leg length, we can't change the bony leg length. We have a horse with a muscular asymmetry because he's overdeveloped on one side more than the other, and the tree's flexible. So the problem is that or the benefit is that I can then pad asymmetrically temporarily for the horse as it just to distribute load and force, but also there's a softness to the actual tree, so meaning that the horse can then lift and move. I said I would probably need to come back in 2 or 3 weeks' time to take some padding out of one side because he's more than likely going to start building up musculature. But you're always going to have a little bit of asymmetry in the tree or in the saddle because you're going to need it, because the horse is structurally asymmetrical. And if you're trying to correct the feet, then that then changes how we fit saddles. And she said, well, we can't change the feet because he's locked in that position. We can't change it. I said, well, okay, so we have to adjust the tree for you. And she was just gobsmacked. She's now she's off competing at national level now in it. And she's just gobsmacked. She just can't get over it. How such a relatively simple product, and it is relatively simple when you think about it, just works for that in that situation and that scenario. But that comes back to spending years essentially just figuring out what horses and riders want. Like as I said, our equine tree is unbelievably flexible. You can try. The funny part is my business partner, when she came over into the UK, she wanted to test the products, and I said, yeah, okay, go and test it, thinking in the most polite way possible that she would kind of go away and give it to a testing what we call a testing house or an independent tester. No, she plonked it on the ground and then drove a car over it, which I was like, that's a weird type of testing. And she went, well, no, but the equine tree is just squashed completely underneath the car, and it was about a ton and a half of car, and it just sprung back up. And I went, well, yeah, I suppose that's the testament of the engineering behind it, because the equine tree is deliberately designed to be really flexible. It is, and we do various other things to make it more flexible as well. So yeah, she drove a car over it, and it just springed back up, and it was like, I was expecting you to go and put that in your car and take it away to test. She then did the same thing. The irony is that she did the same thing with the rider tree as well, which was hilarious. And that's when she went over it. So there was a little bit of so there's more flex in the equine tree. And then with the rider tree, there's a little bit of flex, but it's a little bit more rigid. So when she drove her car over the rider tree, and I knew what she was doing the second time around, you could see the car just going over it, but there was again no damage to the tree. So it's I was quite shocked at that point when she did that. But I don't advocate driving over saddles. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. No, don't do that at home.
Please don't do that. Although the funny part is, although I do know some professionals who do deliberately break the tree in products which they're given because they want more flexibility for their horse, and you can feel more movement. But yeah, I don't advocate it at all in any way, shape, or form. But no, we did that, and that was quite a shock when she did it. But that's the thing is when you with that horse now, with the horse is now leveled up. It took about 2.5, 3 months for the musculature to really kind of grow and develop and then stabilize. And now she came back and she was like, right, okay, so you've solved my issue with the saddle slipping. I was like, yeah, right, okay, what are you going to... She's now been shifted into the problem group. So that's because she's always coming now at me. She's like, oh, I've got a puzzle for you. Try and solve this. Because she's just gone off and bought another horse, which is comical. It's a young horse. It's a lovely little thing. But she was like, the younger horse does a little kind of a bop. You know how some horses, they go into transition into canter, and they give you a lot of power just in the bop, into that first stride into canter, and then they level out and they're absolutely fine. She's like, I want you to try and solve the bop. So we've called it the bop saddle, just to try and solve this puzzle. And she wasn't. The more and more people I talk to now about building a saddle to stop this or to help with this transition of trot into canter, where the horse just gives a little bit too much upward movement and it kind of destabilizes the rider a bit. The more and more people are coming back going, yeah, my horse does that as well. We just thought it was normal. I'm sat there going, right, okay, it's not normal, but see if we can develop something for it. But yeah, we're having to come back to her quite a few times. And that's the beauty of having it in two products, because she's got one part for one horse, and then this younger horse, which we're building this for, she can just transition her top into the next one, and then she's off, she's away. So she's loving it, and because it's a young horse, we can just keep changing it. We can just keep rotating it.
And so, is it specific to like discipline? Like, how does it cope between sort of dressage and jumping, or stuff like that?
Well, this is the thing. This is where it's really fascinating. If you look at, say, a jump saddle and a dressage saddle and a polo saddle and a venting saddle, purely on the underneath, don't look at the top, don't look at where the rider sits, just look at the bottom, look at the panels, look at the underneath of the tree. What's really fascinating is there is not much variation. You may have slight variation between, say, jumping panels and dressage panels. You may have slight variations in terms of padding and the requirements, but the actual shape, the actual kind of weight distribution, the actual basics of an equine kind of surface doesn't change fundamentally. As I say, it's other core components which then change, such as padding or the shape or the contour of the panel. But the actual underneath of the tree doesn't change. When you then flip it over and you start looking at the top, that's where it changes. You've got dressage. You're trying to distribute load and force in a certain area. Jumping is even more complex. I would probably argue that creating a jumping saddle, is the most complex thing you can do, which is partly the reasons why I started with dressage. Because with dressage, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're all trying to sit in the most balanced way. We're trying to sit within the balance of the horse and the movement of the horse and the expression of the horse. But with jumping, it's so different. You've got people who are very tall and how they bend and move. You've got people who are short in height, which then how they bend and move. You've got people who, what we call folders and throwers. You've got kind of show jumpers who will fold through their hips and they become very straight and streamlined, and it kind of looks really quite nice. I'm quite biased to that, because to me that's quite a beautiful style of jumping. But then you have what we call throwers, which are the people which then go up the horse's neck. Now the interesting part is, especially when you look at show jumping, you need to be what we call a thrower when you're jumping bigger fences. When you're jumping 1.60 meters, you can't be kind of tight and compact and fold. You've really got to help that horse jump. 1.60 meters is a big fence. It's really quite wide. So you've got to almost use your force, your kind of your what we call centrifugal force of the rider to basically increase the throw mechanic of getting over the fence. So we haven't got there to building a jumping saddle yet, because it is so complex and they all require different degrees of support. But when you start looking at like dressage, which is all quite contained, quite similar, then you move to things like hunting or kind of hacking and various things like that. Then you look at things like endurance. Again, it's all quite similar. It's all, you need to be quite balanced. Those are what we call personally, is what we call quite controlled kind of sections or disciplines within the dress or within the equestrian world. Then you start looking at kind of the uncontrolled elements of equestrianism. That's things like polo, eventing, show jumping, the gymkhana, barrel racing, all of those types of things. They're basically trying to distribute load and force in a really uncontrolled manner, especially something like polo. You're leaning left side, you're leaning right side, you're whacking a ball. Show jumping, you're relatively controlled in terms of you're not necessarily leaning massively left and right. You're just going forward and backwards. There's a little bit of lateral movement, but something like polo, you're doing a huge amount of lateral movement. Barrel racing, huge amount of lateral movement. Gymkhana, huge amount of lateral. So that's what I mean, is you start looking at it as a grade. And we're slowly starting off from dressage, which is lovely and controlled, to then going into more of the uncontrolled, the unknown, and the more not dangerous, but it's more of the kind of difficult things to solve with the show jumping. But the idea is, and we're now currently building a hacking product as well. So it sounds really stupid, but dressage is more for sitting upright in the right position, shoulders back, so on and so forth. Hacking, you want to sit in, you want that to be an armchair. You want to just sit and feel comfortable and just sit in that for 2 hours and not get saddle sore off it. So we're having to build a product now which is more designed for comfort for customers. So the idea then is that you could have one bottom for the horse, and then actually a top for dressage, a top for hacking, a top for jumping, because it's more designed for positioning of the rider rather than necessarily distribution of load for the horse.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So if somebody wanted to find out more about it, like where do they need to, what do they need to do, and where do they need to go?
Oh, there's loads. Well, the general thing is they can either contact us directly, which is generally the best, because how's my polite way of describing this? Due to my previous career, well, not previous career, I'm still an osteopath. I'm still working as an osteopath. But in my previous guise, I used to basically work for high-end individuals. I used to travel the world doing osteopathy and treating clients. So I wasn't allowed on social medias because I was traveling around quite a lot and doing all of that kind of stuff. So social media, yes, you can contact us on, but I will freely stick my hand up and say I am not brilliant at social media, because I am of a generation who grew up alongside social media, but I was never part of it because of my career in osteopathy. Which is quite comical. But the best thing is to either socials or contact us directly, which is quite good fun. You will sometimes get panicked emails from me at like 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning. So yes, don't be surprised about that. Or at weird times. Or you might end up with one client that they actually ended up getting sent about 4 emails. All by accident. One by me, one by my business partner, one by somebody, and you just sat there going, we're not communicating well, are we, today? But it's why not?
It's the joy of being horse people more than we are people, I think, sometimes. Yeah, horses haven't mastered the art, nor have we yet, but in terms of get in touch. But I'll make sure I put all the links to the social media, and of course to the website. So the website, is it Ipotane? Is it .com or is it .co.uk?
I think we actually have both. I think we have .co.uk and .com. The reason being is because not people use Ipotane is quite an unusual name. So that's the reasons why we kind of went, okay, it's Ipotane or Ipotane Saddlery or Ipotane Saddles at .co or .co.uk or .com. So yeah.
And I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes. So is there anything else that you think people really do need to know about it if they're interested?
Well, it's just that we're always in. There's one thing which a lot of my customers are starting to realise, because they're now getting what we call the second and third and fourth gen products. So people have had our products for a certain period of time. What they do is they get upgrades, because it's one of the things is I'm always tinkering. My wife hates me for it. I'm always like, just go into the garage. I'm just going to go and play. She sat there going, really, again? Okay, right. Because there's always there's always things to improve. It sounds really stupid, but recently we've tweaked it so that the weight of the saddle, we ended up losing a kilo of weight in the saddle. So we dropped a kilo. So when we put the two saddles together, it was coming in at about 5.5, nearly 6 kilos. And we did an adjustment to the product, and we suddenly just dropped a whole kilo of weight. So we now have products which are now roughly about 4.5 to 5 kilos. And we can probably get it lower. I'm now on a bit of a mission now, because I'm like, right, okay, see if I can get it down under 4 kilos, which is a bit of a challenge. But we're always tweaking, we're always improving. So the customers are now starting to get like 4th and 5th gen products from us, like the various improvements. And they're suddenly noticing the difference of this innovative process, because many things like the industry, they think that the products are improving, but they never actually get to have it in their hands. And we're going, no, we've made them products, so let's take your old product away from you. Let's give you a new one. Because you deserve it. You've trusted us with your horse. You've trusted us with your body. So you deserve to now have a product back which represents that innovative process, that improvement. And that's what we do for our testing group. We sometimes invite people to come into our testing group, and then they get to play with all the products and everything like that. But yeah, we're doing loads. And that's the scary thing, is we're like, the really funny part is, because we've put so much innovation, so much time into it. Like what we have, like flexible points, like really flexible points. Like the points are, they have a kind of, they're 4 separate points, and they all move individually. So it's kind of like piano keys. It's kind of like they move like a fan. We have like a gullet bar, which is a flexible gullet bar. So there's spring to it, there's movement to it. For the equine tree, the tree's flexible. All of these components, all of these improvements are then freely given to our testing group, and then to our customers as well. Because if we make innovative improvements, I want to pass that on. I don't want you to then. I don't look at it from the perspective of, right, I've improved the product. You know what? Actually, you've now got to buy a new one. I'm sat there going, well, no. If it's just an improvement of the gullet bar, well, I'll just take your old gullet bar. I'll give you a brand new one. I'm not. That's the funny thing, is a lot of people think that you're sat there going, oh, I've got to buy a new one. You're sat there going, no. If I can improve the product, and it's relatively easy just to swap it out and put it into the next product, I'll do that for you. That's what we're here for. We're here. Like, my ultimate goal is to improve horses and riders. You're not necessarily sat here going, right, I've got to pull out every bit of financial strain and stress out of everybody. You're sat there going, no, it's not worth it. I'd much rather be known for doing a good job. And that's how that's my therapist head talking. My job as a therapist is to do the best job possible. Just like in therapy, you're sat there going, ultimately, the best type of therapist is the therapist you never see, because they've done their job. And that's the beauty of it. So I look at it very much like that. Is the best type of saddle I could ever create is the product which you don't even think about, you don't even pay attention to, and it just fits, and it works from a horse from a young age, from being developed, and we're non-invasive. It just helps you and supports you all the way through that transitional phase and into kind of your performance career, if you want a performance career as a horse. And then in the latter stages, a lot of horses, and this is the really sad part, is a lot of saddles, a lot of products are always focused on youth. They're focused on the young horse, or they're focused on the performance horse. There's none which are really focusing on the older horse, supporting the older horse, and also supporting the older rider as well. And you sit there and go, it's really important with older horses that they keep moving. Really important. You need to keep them active. You need to keep them mobilised. But we forget that. And I'm looking at trying to develop stuff which actually lasts the entire length, the entire span. That's my ultimate goal in anything, is to make sure it's non-invasive. And as I say, we can support you. We do loads of things. We actively encourage customers to rent products, not buy them. So, for example, if they've got a young horse, we say, well, no, your horse is going through backing process. It's 3, it's 6, it's 8, it's still developing, it's still growing. No, rent the product. Don't buy the product. And if you rent it, then that money comes off at the end. We are here to support you. We are not here to just do this financial transaction, because the more we know, the more we can support. And ultimately, that's the whole point of the industry, is that my view, is that we're here to support you in your journey, in your process. We're not here to just kind of rip you off or kind of keep taking money. It's like, no. If you rent the product, you get it. You get the money off at the end. And quite often, we know that customers, if they're going to rent for a long period of time, they're going to end up getting freebies. And we're just like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, there's no problem. We're here to communicate. We're not here to just go, right, you've got a product, we're never going to talk to you again. It's like, no, come back, tell us. Yeah. Where can we improve it? Where can we get better? We want to improve. It's kind of like evolution, in my view, because it's my weird therapist brain. But I look at saddles as kind of living structures. They have a skeleton, they have muscles, they have fat, they have internal organs. They have all of these things, and we've just got to figure out how that dynamic and how that works for each individual, because it is a communication tool. So it's trying to support it for the horse and support it for the rider.
I absolutely love the idea of it. I can't wait to actually see and touch one in person, because it just sounds totally amazing.
The really funny part is I haven't even said, we can shim the rider. That's the one thing I definitely forgot to say, actually. So quite often, a lot of saddles, you have to shim, like put inserts in to correct for the horse and various things like that. I ended up putting it into, because I'm a therapist again, putting it into the rider tree. So you can shim the rider. So if the rider's wonky, you can then correct them. And that came about because somebody in our beta testing group is disabled quite severely, and they have a body asymmetry. So we were trying to shim the saddle for them, and actually it was like, well, if we took it apart and we could put inserts in underneath the rider, and that then solved that situation. So we then kept that innovation for customers. So you sit there and go, you don't have to shim. You can shim the rider and the horse completely separately. Like, there's loads. Like, there's so many things. I could reel them off. I think I ended up doing a document. There's about 40 odd bloody improvements in the product, and it's always improving. We're always doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's so important in terms of like the industry and where we need to go around how we're looking after horses, how we're treating horses, how we're riding, how we're doing anything. I think the more innovation that we can bring to the industry, the better. So absolutely, love what you're doing and everything else. So just to finish today, like, what would be your one business tip for everybody? Because say you've done the osteopathy, we've been talking for a long time, for the osteopathy, but also for this. Like, what from all of that, like, what would your big business tip be for everybody else in the industry?
Genuinely, to care, to actually care, not just to say you care, not to pretend, not to think. I mean, to actually genuinely care. And kindness. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, in terms of business. Because a lot of businesses are all like, no, you've got to go out and get it. It's all quite male. It's all quite masculine. It's all quite dominant. It's thing. But we're, especially in the equestrian industry, there's genuinely, there's a lot of kindness there within the industry, but it kind of gets a bit kind of washed out with this kind of high competitive culture which we're in at the moment. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you've just got to care and be kind, and that makes a big difference. Because when people understand that you care and that you're genuinely coming to them, and from anything from a perspective of kindness and caring, people get it. They suddenly, they suddenly understand that you're not there to obfuscate and confuse or anything like that. You suddenly go, no, you're genuinely there to care and to look after horses, to help the industry, help whoever, if it's to help the horse, if it's to help the rider, you're genuinely there to listen and to care and to be kind.
I love that.
That is the only thing I've certainly found. I've sat down with enough people to try and give me business advice in my career, and both in osteopathy and in this, and being, especially the industry which I work in, in therapy, you can't be typical businessy. You have to care and be kind. The amount of times I've sat with customers for 4 hours and just listened to their story and listened to their pain and their anguish, their fears, their worries, and you sit there and go, no, you okay, we'll get through this. We will solve it. I actually did that with a customer on a saddle fitting. I was there with them for 4 hours because they were genuinely scared about their horse. And I had to ask. I said, look, do you actually want to ride? Do you want this? And they said, I'm unsure. I said, right, in which case, we're not going to do a saddle fitting then. It's not, that would genuinely be unfair. We're not here to sell you a product. We're here to I get where you're coming from. It's not appropriate. Go away, have a think, come back. She was very kind. She called us back up about a month later and said, no, I want one of your products. I'm like, okay, that's no problem. But there's never any pressure, never any, and it's. And she was like, you're the first saddle fitter who's actually come out and listened and actually, asked me very poignant questions about, my horse and me and whether I want to do it. I said, yeah, because ultimately I'm not trying to sell you a product. I have a product which I know works, which supports the industry and everything like that. It's genuinely about you, and if it's right for you. And yeah, in the end, it was all kind of absolutely fine and lovely. But it was the biggest takeaway I found on that was caring and just being kind. It's not about anything else at the end of the day. And we live in a world which is not at the moment particularly caring and kind. So if you can give that to people, that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to change the industry as well. Like, there's a lot of things that people are out there going, oh no, this is not right, this is not right. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people going out there pointing fingers, saying all this stuff, which is actually then putting people in fight and flight and defensive mode. And we should treat it as if we would a horse. Okay, I need to care about that person and why are they doing what they're doing, and how can I listen, and how can I help them to see that there's better ways, rather than coming at them and going, you're really bad. Because if we're going to have the horses, that follows through, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm the first one to stick my hands up. If I've done a bad job, I will be the first one to stick my hands up and go, no, that's not good enough. I've actually kind of been building a product for customers, and I phoned them up 2 days before. I said, look, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the quality. I'm not happy. It's good enough for function, but it's not good enough aesthetically. It's not where I want it to be. So I can give it to you. You can ride in it. You can perform in it, and it's nothing. But it's not, I'm telling you now, and I've actually said this. I'm telling you now, you're going to get a completely free replacement. That is not good enough. But it is good enough if you want to ride it because it's functional. But it is not good enough from my perspective of being good looking enough. And they were really genuine. They said, look, that product works. I want it. I want to ride in it. I don't care what it looks like at the moment. as long as you promise that it will improve. And I said, yeah, that's no problem. It will be improved. I went back. I delivered it to her on the 22nd of December. I gave her an updated product, and she was ecstatic because she was really worried that she wasn't going to be able to ride over Christmas and everything like that. But you're just genuine. You just go, no, I will get it. It doesn't matter if I'm delivering it on the 24th of December or the 25th of December. It doesn't. I will get it to you. But yeah, I drove hours. I drove 3 hours just to deliver it to her because I knew that it couldn't be posted. So I was like, right, I'll just get in the car.
Yeah.
I'm driving. And I just got in, drove, delivered it to her at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, she rode in it, and then I got in the car at 10 o'clock and drove all the way back. You know, it's just being genuine. You know, you're trying to help people. You want to support them on their journey. And as I say, it just comes from a true state of kindness. You don't.
And from that place, I think we feel better because it's like, actually, I'm working from my values and from being me. I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. I'm being totally honest. Yeah, and it's easier, and it's also nice for our clients because they get to know us at the level as well.
It's the one thing which I certainly found was, especially the difficulty is when you're a highly inventive or innovative product, and it is so, you know, I'm not going to lie, our product it's quite weird, you know, it's not anymore because I've had to make it look more normal, like a normal saddle. But when we first came out, it was very polarizing. So, you know, and the difficulty is when you're highly innovative and creative and you're trying new things, it means you have to experiment. And in order to experiment, it means that you have to accept failure a huge amount. You have to spend a vast amount of your time dealing with failure and going, right, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. So I get where people understand, they're quite fearful that they sit there and go, well, it's going to fail or it's not going to work. And you either respond one of two ways. You either look at it and go, right, I failed, you know, and negatively. You look at it through a negative lens, or you look at it through a positive lens. And it's that old thing of when you take medication, you can take medication and you can then, you know, you still have a rough night. You still feel ill. You still feel kind of unwell. You either can mentally turn around and go, right, well, the medication didn't work. Or you can turn around and go, actually, I could have been a lot worse if I didn't take the medication. And it's that kind of thing with innovation and experimentation and failure, is that you have to look at it and go, right, I failed. Where can I improve? How can I improve it? Who am I improving it for? Because you're also, when you do innovation and creation, you need to remove ego. You need to remove yourself. But the only way to be creative and innovative and kind of really try and help is to understand your core value. And my certain core value, as I say, is to help. I want to help the horse. I want to help the rider. I want to understand. A lot of people now get it because I say I want to understand the puzzle. If you want me here to solve a puzzle, then I need to understand it. And I like puzzles. I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. I freely admit this. You know, I sit there and play with a Rubik's Cube. I am that kind of person. You know, those impossible puzzles. I love those. But you underneath all of that, you know, innovation is scary. It is failure. But at the end, you will it will win. It will kind of do better.
So I think you only fail when you decide that you stop and you're not going to try anymore. And if you keep preparing to learn the lesson and go, no, that way didn't work. Okay, let's try something different and keep that. Even in business, like there are going to be those ideas that fail, and you've got to get comfortable with failure. And it's like, when it doesn't work, when it's not.
And that's what I mean, is that it's also the reasons why when I was chatting to my saddle friend, who unfortunately has passed away since, because I would have loved to have them on board because they kind of really understood it. But when they first came on and we started to talk quite regularly, they were just like, no, because big companies, they, you know, what we call legacy companies. So we're talking about saddle companies which have been around for hundreds of years. You know, they're legacies. They're huge. You know, they're also, the problem is that it's also conditioned. They have what we call a fixed mindset, and equally there's more at play. You know, they're more happy, they don't want to lose their reputation. They don't want to lose their social kind of standing within the industry. And I'm sat there going, well, I'm just an idiot. I thought I'd try. Let's have a go. So in some regards, by looking at the industry differently, and by thinking slightly outside of the box, we have more freedom. But at the end of it, you've got to be more willing to fail and keep getting back up and keep going. And that, as I said, it comes back down to your core value of why are you doing this? Are you doing this for financial, which then is reasons why it's more difficult to get back up and keep going, because you keep going, oh, okay, right, I want to earn the money. But if you're looking at it from the point of view of, actually, no, I genuinely care. I want to make things better. I think the industry can be better. I think the society can be better. I will keep getting up. And that is, if that's your core value, then you will just keep getting up and keep going, because it's not a knockdown, it's a learning perspective.
Yeah.
And it is the same with business.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that, and thank you so much for joining me today, Bradley. So we could talk forever and ever and ever. But yeah, so unfortunately we do all have work still to go to, don't we, today? But thank you so much for joining me. I will make sure that I put all the links so that people can find you, and you've been an amazing guest. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.